connecting with people and starting up conversations doesn't come naturally to you, please know you are not alone. A lot of people assume I'm a natural at networking, that it just comes easy to me, but the truth is I've had to work at it. Sure, I'm an extrovert and I like talking to people, but learning how to connect and engage and build those professional relationships, those are skills that I had to really learn. And so today I am going to share with you the books that helped me the most and some of my new favorites to help us all build better relationships. Welcome to the Creating Opportunities podcast. This is the place where we help ambitious professionals build better relationships to achieve success in all areas of their lives. I am your host, Cassandra Thompson. I am a speaker, a trainer, an iced coffee lover. It's right here, y'all. And I can't wait to help you make deeper connections. Okay, so first book up, and these are in no particular order. This is a new favorite. This book is not getting enough play. It is called Made for People by Justin Whitmel Early. Y'all, I'm getting over a sinus infection, so if I sound a little nasally and I'm having a hard time, I'm sorry. I'm gonna try and edit out all the sniffling as much as possible, but early for some reason was hard to say. Coming from a Christian perspective, I will say that, but I think everyone should read this. The subtitle alone, Why We Drift into Loneliness and How to Fight for a Life of Friendship. Y'all, this book is so good. Just the intro. You should buy this book just for the introduction chapter. It does such a good job of talking about how we drift into loneliness. Our world is set up that if we do not take intentional action, we will just, like going down a river, drift, and one day look around and go, where am I? Why am I lonely? Why am I here alone? It is such a good read. The quick summary of this book is it just is focusing on the fact that relationships need to be intentional. We have to kind of work at them and make some strong arguments for what actual friendships look like, including the hard parts of it. One thing I will say too is he is very blessed to have a hardcore lifelong group of friends, but he acknowledges that. I don't know about you, but I've read some books on this topic where people act like their situation is everybody's, and he does a really good job of saying, like, I know the place I come from isn't everybody's place, but here are still the things we can all do and all strive to work towards. So I really appreciate that. Also, he's a lawyer by day, so he does a great job of building cases around and like arguments of why we need the things that are laid out in this book. Also, one of my favorite takeaways is he's not afraid to say some of the things that are a little bit harder to say, and he makes a really good case for why proximity and prioritization are very important, even if we don't really want to hear that. Yeah, he talks about moving closer to the people that you care about. So anyway, this one I think is just a really good read. I highly recommend it, both for, this is more on the friendship end of things, not the professional relationship, but I think there's something there for everybody. Okay, next up, super communicators. Charles Duhigg. Big Charles Duhigg fan, read The Power of Habit a bajillion years ago. That was one of his first books. This book, Super Communicators, How to Unlock the Secret Language of Connection. This is a great read. In all honesty, I started with a library copy of this, and then I went, no, I'm gonna highlight like a crazy person and I need my own. So I grabbed my own copy. You can still see the Target sticker on it. Fun. So I've been talking about this a lot in my weekly newsletter and on social media, but if you've missed those, let's talk about it a little bit. The main takeaway from this book is that there are 3 types of conversations that can be happening. One is a decision-making conversation. One is an emotional conversation. One is a social conversation, like who we are as human beings, right? And the thing is, you can be in a conversation and you think you're having a decision-making conversation, and the person across from you thinks we're having a defining who we are conversation. And it can be a mix of all 3 things at once. And so this book does a great job of talking about how do you identify the conversation that's at hand so that you can meet people and connect where they're at. I'm sure you, like me, have had a conversation with someone one where you're just missing each other, where they're wanting one thing from you and like just emotional support and you're giving advice, right? We're missing each other. So this book does a great job of laying out how to identify which of those conversations you're having and how to meet people where they're at within those types of conversations. I will say too, this book gives great stories to draw you in to these different ideas. It's not a dry book. A book on communication could sound really dry. He gives really compelling stories to highlight as examples the issues of each chapter and how to work through these things. So really enjoyed it. One thing for me is, a huge part of being a better communicator is being a better listener. So I am trying to take some of his steps on being a better listener to heart so that I can then ask better questions to decipher what kind of conversation I'm having. I will say this one can be great for honestly, a conversation with your spouse, your parents, your kids, etc., but also business relationships. If you're doing one-on-ones with your team, if you're meeting with your manager, if you are having a sales call, all of what he says comes into play. Okay, so now we are getting into some of the books that I have loved for a really long time. And this first one, I don't understand how this book didn't blow up when it came out. It is so good. This is a book that people don't talk about enough. It is so good. It is called The Like Switch. This is written by an ex-FBI agent, and it's an ex-FBI agent's guide to influencing, attracting, and winning people over. Now, I want to say, some of you immediately are going to be like, ugh, I don't want to be fake. It's not about being fake. It's about caring more about that other person than you. Are you being kind in a way? Are you talking in a tone that's gonna bring warmth, right? We all can learn to be more likable, and that's what this book goes through. And I will be honest, when I first read this book years ago, I had my car in the shop. My car was I took it to the dealer, don't give me a hard time, to get something fixed. And when I got back to the dealership to pick up my car, they'd given me this charge that was wild. They had to break a screw to get my tire off. And they were gonna charge me $75 for the broken screw. A screw that they had put on a month earlier. It was an issue with the car. I used the tips in this book to talk the guy out of that charge, taking it off my bill. So I saved $75 because of this book. So it's a great book on how to influence, how to engage. He talks about if you move to a new city, how do you start making friends? What do you do? Really, really underrated guide. So I highly recommend this book for learning how to build rapport, how to build warmth, how to be seen as that person people want to talk to, and yet still be you. It's not being fake. It's just building up skills on who you are so that you can be more attractive to others. Okay, if networking events make you want to crawl back into bed, this book is for you. The Art of Mingling. Now, this book was such a great primer for me on how to make it through an event, how to walk into a mixer and figure out who I'm going to talk to, how to it gives strategies and approaches of how do you walk through a room, what do you say to people, when do you leave, etc. It is where I started developing my own theories off of what I learned in this book. So this one is a great one if those sorts of things really freak you out, if those networking events freak you out. Now, granted, I am about to do a live workshop on this topic of how do you confidently connect at a networking event. But if you want to have something else, if you're a person who's trying to learn as much about this area as possible, well, I want you to join my workshop. I also highly recommend this book. It's funny. It's an engaging read. I really have used this and adapted it to my own style, but she gives tactical strategies, and that I appreciate. Okay, and last up, Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, I have a love-hate relationship with this book, okay? This book came out right as I got my first job at Wheel of Fortune at 22 years old, and I read it, and everything in it seemed impossible to do for me at that time. It all sounded intimidating. I feel like in some ways it felt a little advanced level, you're coming with the presumption that I'm not scared to reach out to people. But I reread it about a year ago. I still have a love-hate relationship with it. Here's why. Does Keith Ferrazzi sound cocky as all get out at points? Yes, he does. He actually made a follow-up book that I have and haven't read yet, talking about building your circle of people, and I think it came off of he realized he didn't have deeper relationships relationships because he was so busy making all these like informal connections. I think, I'm not quite sure, but I think from what I remember, that's it. So rereading it, I went, okay, it's a little cocky at points, but I still recommend it as a read. Reading it again, you know, like I said, when I read it at 22, I was intimidated. It seemed too hard to do. Reading it again, I realized there is a chapter in here called The Genius of Audacity. And in it, he talks about like having the willingness to ask, letting that fear of embarrassment be pushed down over the idea of what the possibilities of what could happen if you get over that fear. And so reading that again was really helpful. What I appreciate is he goes into the idea of influential people and how to figure out who influential people are, as well as like talking to anybody. But a lot of people, I think, try and steer away from that idea of getting to the right people, and he goes head on for it, which I do actually appreciate. Plus, he goes through a lot of different ways of networking. So some people only talk about, right, like art of mingling is about in-person event networking. How do you deal with that room? I don't want to say work the room, but how do you feel comfortable in that room? Great. Other books are like, here's how to manage your network and reach out to people. He gives some really creative ideas. This was really helpful in understanding that networking doesn't always have to be having a coffee or having a drinks meeting. It can be, hey, do you want to go on a hike with me? Or hey, do you want to have breakfast at 7 a.m.? Or I'm going to go look at this art museum. You want to come with me? I really loved that part of it. It covers a wide range of topics, and so that's why this is a book that I do go back and refer to. Okay, so those are the 5 books that I recommend you pick up. I have links to them in the description and the show notes. I would love to know from you though, what books helped you with building better relationships? Leave them in the comments if you're on YouTube, or put them in a comment on my Instagram or LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. And if you want to watch more on how to build better relationships, go watch this video next, or the podcast that's linked in the show notes, and I'll see you there. Bye.